my time here, so I think I'll go ahead and get started. And I'm just delighted that you're here, and I thank God every time for your desire to know more of His Word. I hope you're enjoying this study of Revelation half as much as I am. It's a lot of fun. So let's begin with a word of prayer, shall we? Lord, we recognize how you have chosen us, and in the midst of our lives where it feels sometimes like we are making the decision to get up and go to church, and we are making the decisions to honor you as our Lord and as our God, that we see behind that the work of your Holy Spirit moving us, transforming us, shaping us, making us your own, and how you have sealed us then to redeem us and make sure that we arrive one day at the destination you have promised. Oh Lord, continue, we pray, to take a hold of our lives. Do not let us go. Do not let us swerve or be detoured or drift in any way, but strengthen us day by day in our faith in Christ, the one who redeemed us. In His name we pray. Amen. Okay, we're on Revelation 7 today, and I hope maybe by the grace of God we could finish the whole chapter. I feel like we want to try to pick up the pace a little bit here if we can. So before we read chapter 7, please go again to the last verse of chapter 6. The last verse of chapter 6. So you remember from a couple weeks ago when we were doing chapter 6, how this chapter 6 represents the seals that were broken on the great scroll. The scroll has all the things that bring about the redemption of the saints and the vindication of the saints by God's wrath upon His enemies, right? So as each seal was being broken on the scroll, God's wrath was being poured out. And the sixth seal, the last one in chapter 6, I made the argument that one seems to me like it's not talking about the ongoing judgment that occurs over the course of time, but the kind of the final judgment that's taking place. And so look at the last verse of chapter 6. Chapter 7 is going to be a little interlude, and then when we get to chapter 8, that'll be the seventh seal. And the seventh seal brings about the seven trumpets, so you can just sort of get a sense of the structure here, right? But this is very important, chapter 6, verse 17. So this is talking about Him who's seated on the throne and the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come. And who can stand? It's a question. See the question mark there? So it ends with this question: who can stand in the face of the wrath of the one who sits on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb? Chapter 7 is going to answer that question. Who can stand? So we'll go to chapter 7. The very first two words, after this. So what does that indicate? It means that after what we just saw, after what John just saw in chapter 6, there's a new scene that's presented to him, right? Now, after this, now all of a sudden the picture changes. He's going to see something else. So I'll go ahead and read it. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. After this, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, that no wind might blow on earth or sea or against any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God. And he called with a loud voice to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm earth and sea, saying, Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of the seal, 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. 12,000 from the tribe of Judah were sealed, 12,000 from the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 from the tribe of Gad, 12,000 from the tribe of Asher, 12,000 from the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 from the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 from the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 from the tribe of Levi, 12,000 from the tribe of Issachar, 12,000 from the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 from the tribe of Joseph, 12,000 from the tribe of Benjamin were sealed. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation and from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." And all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, "Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen." Then one of the elders addressed me, saying, "Who are these clothed in white robes, and from where have they come?" I said to him, "Sir, you know." And he said to me, "These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb in the midst of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." Beautiful. What a beautiful picture. So, two scenes in this chapter, right? We saw in verse 1, it says, "After this," and then he sees the four angels at the corners, and they're sealing all the members of the tribes. And then that goes through verse 8. And then if you look at verse 9, see how verse 9 begins? There's another "after this." So the scene changes again. And so he's got two scenes in this chapter. Well, I'll just tell you what I think they are. So as we go through it, you kind of get the picture, right? So I think what we're seeing here in the first scene is the church militant, and we're seeing in the second scene the church triumphant. Now, what do we mean by those? Maybe you've heard those terms before used in the church, right? When we talk about the church militant, what do we mean?
Those are still living and fighting for Christ.
Yes, those who are engaged in the warfare of this life, those who are alive, those who are on earth, we could say, those who are part of the struggle to be faithful to Christ in the face of all the things that are warring against Christ. When we talk about the church triumphant, what do we mean?
Church in heaven.
The church up in heaven, those who have rested from their labors now. They don't fight anymore. Their warfare is done. They are with the Lord forever. So all of us who are Christians will be part of both of those churches at some point, but it's different points in time, right? So right now you are all part of the church militant, and your loved ones who had faith in Christ and have passed from this earth are part of the church triumphant, right? So there are two pictures of the church. It's the same church, but one looking at it from our time on earth, another looking at it from our time in heaven. So let's just break those down and kind of look at it. So in chapter 7, verse 1, he sees four angels standing at the four corners of the earth. So we've talked about how the numbers in the book of Revelation are very often symbolic. What would you expect the four corners of the earth to represent? This one should be easy.
Compass points.
Yeah, really. It's kind of the compass points. In other words, it's a way of saying all direction, everything. Yeah, the whole earth. And what they're doing is holding back the four winds so that the wind doesn't blow on the earth, sea, or against any tree. What would that represent? So to help us with that, let's take a quick peek back at Zechariah chapter 3. Zechariah.
I wonder if that's where that expression, the calm before the storm, comes.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, don't know. But that expression, the four corners of the earth, we still use that today, don't we? Did I say it's 3? It's Zechariah 6. I meant Zechariah 6. Zechariah 6. Zechariah 6, and I'm going to start at verse 5. The angel answered me, "These are the four spirits of heaven going out from standing in the presence of the Lord of the whole world. The one with the black horses is going toward the north country, the one with the white horses toward the west, the one with the dappled horses toward the south. When the powerful horses went out, they were straining to go throughout the earth, and he said, 'Go throughout the earth,' and they went throughout the earth. Then he called to me, 'Look, those going toward the north country have given,' and so on and so on." So you see the four horsemen there. I'm looking for something else that I maybe forgot to write down.
How did you read verse 5 again?
The angel answered me, "These are the four spirits of heaven going out from standing in the presence of the Lord of the whole world." Do you have something different there?
You have a different translation.
Yeah, it's ESV.
Well, I got the ESV. It says four winds.
What am I got an NIV here. Let me make a quick change. That would make life easier for all of us. Here's one. All right, I'm sorry about that. And that's exactly why I couldn't find what I was looking for, because the word was different, right? Thank you, Mike, you rescued me. Yeah, so the NIV translates it there as the four spirits. And we've probably talked before in other classes about how the words for wind or breath and spirit have overlap in both the Hebrew and the Greek languages. So the NIV there is translating it as spirits, but the ESV I think gets it right. It's the winds. So the winds are being held back. So when the winds are being held back, what is it that's being held back? What the four horsemen, what are they bringing? Judgment. Yeah. So what it is a constraint on God's judgment, a constraint on God's wrath. It's holding back. The winds bring about the blowing of the Spirit of the Lord, brings about the Lord's wrath on the people. So holding that back is a way of saying, let's wait on this. It's being held back in chapter 7, verse 1. And then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun. Let's take a quick peek at Malachi chapter 4, verse 2. Malachi 4, verse 2. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. And while we're looking at that, let's also go back and take a peek at Ezekiel 43. Ezekiel 43. Ezekiel 43, verse 2. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was coming from the east. So this idea of something coming up from the east, or from where the sun rises, in one instance there in the Old Testament, that means righteousness coming. In this other instance here in Ezekiel, it means the glory of the Lord coming. So in chapter 7, verse 2, an angel ascending from the rising of the sun. That sounds to me then like it's an angel bringing righteousness and glory. And what's he bringing? He's bringing the seal of the living God. And he called with a loud voice to the four angels who had been given power to harm earth and sea. So those four angels, or the four winds that are being restrained, what would they be bringing? Harm. And so they're being restrained from bringing that harm. Verse 3, he's saying, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. So do you see the picture here, what he's saying? That God is withholding this wrath until the servants of the Lord can be sealed on their foreheads. Now, what exactly does that mean, to have them sealed? Well, let's take a look at Ezekiel chapter 9. Ezekiel 9. And as we've said before, Revelation's not exactly quoting any of these Old Testament passages, but these Old Testament passages serve as the allusions or the pictorial language that gives echoes to the things that John is seeing, so it helps us understand it. Ezekiel 9. Yeah, let's start with verse 3. Now the glory of the God of Israel had gone up from the cherub on which it rested to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed in linen, who had the writing case at his waist, and the Lord said to him, Pass through the city, through Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are committed in it. And to the others he said in my hearing, Pass through the city after him and strike. Your eye shall not spare, and you shall show no pity. Kill old men outright, young men and maidens, little children and women, but touch no one on whom is the mark. And begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders who were before the house. So there's a picture there where the Lord is going to bring judgment upon Jerusalem because they were so evil. But those who cried, who sighed and groaned at the abominations going on, those who looked at the evil that was going on in Jerusalem, and it bothered them in their spirits, it troubled them, they hated what God hated, right? They were going to be sealed on their foreheads, so that when the judgment comes, the judgment does not come on those who had been sealed. So that gives some background here then for what we see in Revelation 7, right? The four winds that would bring harm, God's judgment, are being restrained until those that are going to belong to God are sealed on their forehead. So do you kind of see the picture of what's happening? Those who belong to Christ are being specially marked. It's not talking about a tattoo you're going to get someday on your forehead. It's not talking about some special literal mark. We kind of symbolize this when in baptismal ceremonies, right? Receive the sign of the cross, both upon the forehead and upon the breast, as a token that you have been redeemed by Christ the crucified. It's a token. It's a reminder. It's a symbol of it. But the actual sealing is something that God does. God marks you in a way that in the invisible realms is obvious, so that you belong to His. And all the angels that will bring about God's wrath, as they go through, they know exactly who you are, that you belong to the Lord. And the great wrath of God that's going to come does not come upon those who are sealed. They're going to be preserved. God's going to protect them for the end. Verse 4, and I heard the number of the seal, 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. So how many people are sealed? It's a tricky question, isn't it? So 144,000. So if those that are reading this in kind of the pre-mill structure, this is what's happening during the 7 years of tribulation. What's happened to all the Christians at the beginning of the tribulation?
Well, they think that
they've already been raptured. They're gone, or in the middle of the tribulation, depending on which side they take. But before the wrath comes, they've all been raptured. So who are these 144,000 in that scheme?
the tribes of Israel.
They're the Israelites that will come to Christ during that 7-year period. Or if you're Jehovah's Witness, Yeah, these are the Jehovah's Witnesses.
They were literalists.
They got a real problem because there's more than 144,000 of them now, right? I don't know how they work.
Well, they changed their theology.
Did they? Did
Yeah,
they?
they
Just do it?
got the ante.
New revelations all the time.
Yeah, it used to be literal, that's all that were gonna be saved was 144,000. When they knock on doors, talk to you. And, but then now they've upped the ante, because it's not working out.
So they've spiritualized this somehow to,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Is this a literal 144,000? Well, let's just start first of all by asking, could this be a literal 144,000 Jews?
In Israel.
No. What's one reason we know it can't be?
Well, one is that the tribe of Dan.
Well, don't go to that. Don't get there yet, Mike. You're on target, but I'm going to step ahead of me.
All right.
Well, could there be 12,000 from the tribe of Asher?
Hard to find. Some of these tribes are wiped out.
Yeah, these tribes, nobody can trace themselves back to these tribes anymore. Remember, up to the time of Christ, it was very important to be able to trace your lineage back. And like Christ, we have his father and great-grandfather and great-grandfather going all the way back, right to Adam. It was really critical when we studied Nehemiah. Do you remember when we studied Nehemiah, how important it was that they were able to trace the priests back to Aaron, and those that couldn't, they wanted to cast them out. It was very important. But once the temple was destroyed in 70 AD and the Jews were dispersed all over what was left of them, it became irretrievably intermingled. Today, you could find someone who says, I'm Jewish, but they can't tell you what tribe they're from. In all likelihood, they probably would have to be from Judah or Benjamin or Levi, because the other tribes were almost all pretty much wiped out. But you can't go back and trace this.
Genealogies were really important.
Yes.
I mean, Matthew begins his, because he's writing to Jews, his gospel, so that's why he concludes Jesus' genealogy to prove his ancestors.
That's right. It was a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And it's interesting in the scheme of God's unfolding of history, how after Christ has come, shortly thereafter, when the temple's destroyed in 70 AD, it all becomes lost. It's almost like it could only have been true before that point. The Messiah couldn't come now, because who could trace themselves to David? Couldn't be. Also because numbers are so symbolic, right? So the 144,000, what would that be? So anyway, I had to go buy a gross of something once when I was a teenager. It's like, gross, what's a gross? What's a gross?
12 times 12.
Yeah, 12 times 12, 144. So we've already seen the number 12 in this book. Remember, there were 24 elders, which we said represented
12 times.
the 12 tribes of Israel plus the 12 apostles. So it's a way of describing the totality of both the Old and New Covenants people who belong to God. So here you have 144, so that's 12 times 12. It's multiplied. And then it's 144,000. So what's the number 1,000 represent?
10 cubed. It's completeness of the church.
Yes, yeah, the very large and full, complete number. So 144,000 has strong symbolic tones to it, meaning the fullness of the church, all of God's people, everywhere from all of time. So is it a literal 144,000? No. It's a way of describing all of God's people. A third reason why I don't see it this way is because in the second scene of this chapter, we're looking at the same people, but from a different perspective. Here in the first half, it's the church militants, looking at them from being on the side of being on earth. when we look at it from the side of them being in heaven, how many are there? Verse 9. Yeah, a multitude that no one could number. You can't count it to 144,000. And the 144,000 is going to appear later in the book of Revelation too, so we'll see there as well that it's a symbolic number. So who's being sealed? Who is God marking to make sure that they're going to be preserved and protected from all the things that happen so that one day they get to heaven, that they can stand in the day of judgment? That's what this means. Who's going to be able to stand in the day of judgment? Those that God chose, that you. Now, okay, getting to Mike was onto something important there. You look at the names of the 12,000, and here too we see something kind of interesting. So I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm about 98% sure, I think. What do you notice as you look at the names? Now this is really testing you, because if you don't remember the names of the 12 tribes, you'll be baffled. That's why it's good to go to Sunday school when you're a kid, so you learn all that stuff for when you're an adult. But Mike hit on one.
Well,
there's one tribe missing.
Yeah, Dan's missing.
Dan is missing.
But then you have Manasseh is listed but not Ephraim.
Right. Okay, so.
And then Levi didn't get land.
Right. All right, so just to review all of that, when you look at the 12 tribes of Israel, I told her I wasn't going to use the map. I won't. We don't have time.
It's okay.
But
I can.
when you look at the 12 tribes of Israel, and they were numbered in not always exactly the same way, but for the most part, Jacob had 12 sons, but one son did not inherit with everybody else. That was Levi. Why did Levi not inherit with everybody else? Because he was the priestly tribe. That was the tribe that was dedicated to the service of the Lord. So they didn't have they had their own cities, but they didn't have their own territory. They were supposed to be interspersed among everybody doing the work of the Lord. So they're not counted normally among the 12. Well, then you've only got 11, so how do you get 12? Well, you may remember Joseph, who was one of the sons, he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and when Jacob was giving out his final blessings before he died, he gave blessings to each of Joseph's sons. So Joseph actually inherited a double share. Each son inherited. So in this list here, you're including Levi, but you're omitting Dan. And you've got Manasseh here, but you don't have Ephraim listed. But you do have Joseph listed down second from the bottom. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. So you still have 12, but it's kind of a different configuration. All right, so why would Ephraim not be mentioned? Instead, Joseph, his father, is mentioned. And why would Dan not be mentioned?
I have no clue.
Oh,
He was prepared to ask this question.
I guess, like I said, we don't know for sure, but I think the best answer that many people seem to kind of fall on, it makes the most sense to me, is that when you look at the history of Israel, Israel fell into apostasy in many ways because of two idols that were set up of calves. So you remember when, I'm going to run out of time. I'll never finish if I do all this. But they built these two calves, and those became places of great worship, false worship for the Israelites, and it caused Israel to stumble. And if you remember from when we studied the book of Judges, do you remember that? Those of you that were here, where was one of those calf idols set up?
The Dan territory.
In Dan, right, the city of Dan, way up north. And where was the other one set up? Anybody happen to know? In Ephraim. So you had one in the north of Israel, one in the south of Israel. and people went and worshiped these golden calves, and they said, oh, this is Yahweh, he's this golden calf, whereas God said, no, that's not me. It's not the way to worship. But because those two caused Israel to stumble, here in this list of tribes, they're omitted. It's almost a way for the revelator there to highlight the fact that the idolatry that Israel fell into is excluded from these sealings that take place, the sealings of the people of God. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay, so then in verse 9, the scene changes. So now you've gone from looking at it from an earthly perspective, all the people who will ever live, who God chose, God put his mark on you and said, that one belongs to me. You might have problems, doesn't mean you're not going to suffer any wrath of the common types of wrath that exist, doesn't mean bad things don't happen in your life, but you will stand on the great day of wrath. On the last day, you'll still be standing when everyone else is swept away. Why? Because God sealed you. He chose you for that. He's going to make sure that you get there. And then verse 9, the scene changes to now looking at from the heavenly perspective. So when we're all gathered together up in heaven with all the saints, what's it going to look like? Look at verse 9. It's going to be a great multitude that no one could number. From every nation and from all tribes and peoples and languages. Are we as Christians, are we ethnocentric? Do we think of the church as a white church or an American church? No, we don't. We get accused of that all the time. Maybe there are people who think that way. I don't know, but I don't think that way, and I don't see other Christians think that way. I feel like when we meet Christians from other countries, don't you feel something close to them? Like they're a lot closer to you than maybe the guy that lives down the street from you and shares the same culture and language with you. So those that belong to the Lord are going to come from every tribe and tongue and nation. What will we be doing? I've probably told this before. I tell too many stories and I'll never finish. But I remember my admiral, who I deeply loved, a great, great man, and he loved golf. I was with him one time and he said, I know there's going to be golf in heaven because golf just makes me so happy. I'm sure the Lord's going to have golf up there. And I didn't have the heart to tell him. There's no picture in the Bible where we're going to be playing golf. And if there is a golf course up there, who's going to want to go and play golf when you could stand before the throne? That's what you're going to want to do, right? Stand before the throne and before the Lamb. Clothed in white robes. What do the white robes represent? We've seen that 3 times already in the book of Revelation. This is the 4th time we're seeing it.
It just brings to mind my confirmation kids sometimes when we talk about what heaven's going to be like. And I've had some come out and say, well, I don't want to go. That's going to be boring. You know, and they expect video games and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, I think that's why we should try to make church interesting and fun. Church should be fun, right? Is it okay to smile in church? Dad, do you remember Mrs. Ochterberg?
Yeah.
This is where that idea first came to me, you know, because I grew up in a, you know, good German Lutheran church, and we got this young music director and his wife, and they were like a young couple, and they loved the Lord. And I remember Mrs. Ochterberg saying, you know, we see the people, they go up for communion, and then you see their faces when they turn to come back down the aisle, to come back from communion to their seats, and they all look like this. Shouldn't we be smiling when we just received the body and blood? Shouldn't we be happy? So I think that's why I like when George puts bounce in the music, and when the people are like enjoying it. Church should be a lot of fun, and if it wasn't so fun, we probably wouldn't think heaven's going to be so boring. Probably the kids think heaven is like a billion-year-old church service, right? Some of that's just our human limitations, isn't it? So they're clothed in white robes. They have palm branches. What do those represent?
Victory.
Yeah, remember Jesus, the palm branches they laid down, coming from, I can't remember what psalm it was, but it's a symbol of peace. It's a symbol of the coming of the Messiah. It's the Messiah's kingdom.
Palm Sunday.
Yeah. And what are they saying? Verse 10, they're crying out with a loud voice. Now it's interesting, it says they're crying out. I don't think there's any place in Revelation where it talks about us singing, but I think a lot of these where it talks about them saying or crying out, they're probably singing it. Partly because the language itself, I'm not a Greek expert, but what I understand is that the structure of it and the use of participles and things like that, it just has a rhythmic kind of feel to it that would be conducive to music. And that's why, as a matter of fact, we've set a lot of this to music, right? So many of these things you're reading here where they're praising the Lord are things that we see repeated in the liturgy or in some of the hymns that we sing, because they're just so beautiful to sing. So I picture them here singing in a loud voice. Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So you see that connection there, the one who sits on the throne, God, and the Lamb. Once again, they're seen in the same sentence. There's a unity to them. Verse 10, and all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God. So remember the picture we saw back in chapter 4? You've got the one who sits on the throne, and there's the four living creatures and the 24 elders. And it just kind of goes out, right? And now you get the picture. What's around all of that? All the angels. How many angels are there? Yeah, lots, lots. So this isn't like a church service. Imagine this choir singing, boy. There's a lot of people, and they're singing. Verse 12, saying, "Amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever." So 7 ascriptions that they're giving to the Lord there. What we say the number 7 represents?
Completion.
Yeah, in other words, it's a way of praising God perfectly, praising God fully. Have you ever worshiped God and you felt like you just didn't have the right words to say, or you didn't know how to put your feelings or what you wanted into words? Won't it be marvelous when you're able to do that? Let that feel full and magnificent. I am over time. I hate to do that, but I think we better call it quits there. Next week we'll for sure wrap up chapter 7 and get into.
Can I ask one question on what you already went over?
Yes.
Okay, 144,000. The number 12 times 12 times 1,000. And the 12 would be, 144 is Old Testament times New Testament believers. But if this is church militant, the people that are, the Christians that are alive during the last day, why would the Old Testament 12 come into play?
Good, I'm glad you asked that because I probably wasn't clear then. So this is not a snapshot of the church at a point in time. It's a picture of the church across, of God's people across all time. In other words, those who are being sealed are those who are sealed from creation to the last day. And this is a way of looking at all of those. They're being sealed and preserved for the final, to survive the final day of wrath across all of time. It's not a point in time. Good, thank you for that. All right, God bless you all. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I went a little bit late. And I hope we will see you again next Sunday. I hope you're enjoying this. Thank you.